Here we are talking Buckeyes football on another Wednesday here at the Voice of College Football. We appreciate you stopping by. It is Buckeyes Live, presented by FanDuel. Steve Hellwagon right next to me. Bucknuts 247 Sports. Kevin Noon, BuckeyeHuddle.com. The Big Mean Podcast, when we are so blessed to receive one of those. Comments and questions are welcome there in the chat, folks. So leave your comments and questions. We do appreciate. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. We do appreciate Super Chat contributions. These guys show up and deliver for us. How are we doing today?
Doing great. I am sitting here at the Schottenstein Center getting ready for basketball tonight.
And I am not.
Hoops against USC. We'll check out the line presented by FanDuel here at some point during the big show. Kevin, do you think college football fans, Buckeye fans in particular, care if their players succeed in the NFL, i.e. win Super Bowl championships?
Absolutely, they care. It's a big, point of pride, and it, goes a long way to show development and how, players have been able to advance, and you can get to the top of your game in the collegiate game, but can you continue to advance into the NFL? And that's the reason why, everybody gets excited about the number of players that go to the NFL scouting combine. It's why everybody gets excited about who's going to get a ring. I mean, obviously you get invested in these players 3, 4, 5, maybe even more years if they're a multi-year recruit type guy. I mean, you've been invested in them for half a decade or whatever. You're going to want to see them do well. And since everything is just, about bragging rights and everything else, I think it's important. So the Buckeyes were in a position that they were going to have at least one Super Bowl champion with New England taking on Seattle. And, so there's going to be those bragging rights right there. But, it's very important there. And too, I mean, I think that the university cares as well because it's going to make its graphics and everything else. And, the Jackson Smith and Jigbo did this and did that. And even though he had a pretty quiet game in the Super Bowl and had to go to the injury tent and go back to the locker room to get checked out and everything else, it doesn't change the fact that he was Offensive Player of the Year in the NFL. So, I think all of that is going to go a long way in proper, recruiting type paraphernalia.
We sit there and we watch all the playoff games in the NFL for the last few weeks, and every time a game would come on, I'd have a family member like, do we have anybody in this game? Who's the Ohio State people in this game? And I'd say, Trayvon Henderson, Thayer Munford, and Mike Vrabel for the Patriots for the third time. You have to repeat it every week for everybody to let them know who's on what team. And then, of course, Jackson Smith, the Jigba. And unfortunate for him, he got, was knocked out of the game for a little bit, but came through it none the worse the wear. And as a Super Bowl champion, it certainly was instrumental in helping the Seahawks get there. But yeah, I think Ohio State fans watch the NFL games, when they can, when it's part of their schedule, or to watch their favorite team and keep an eye out for Ohio State guys. And it's been kind of cool in recent years to have a great quarterback like Stroud. I mean, he's the first guy in forever to win at least one playoff game in each of his first 3 years as a starting quarterback. I'm not sure who the last guy was that did that, but he's one of very few people that have done that. And so that's an accomplishment that people kind of, watch the Texans to see. I had a friend of mine who was a West Virginia fan a few years ago, and he would get on Twitter and see all the Ohio State people tracking Joe Burrow in his 2 seasons at LSU, and he wins the Heisman Trophy. And, they're like, we got a Buckeye who won the Heisman Trophy, and he would get all upset. He goes, why do you people care after he left Ohio State? He's not at Ohio State anymore. But, it was just one of those things.
Well, Kevin, as you run that down, I'm thinking of most of the main players, not just for Ohio State, but certainly the 3 in play for the Buckeyes on the New England side. And then the one obviously Jackson Smith and Jigba on the Seattle side. Then even thinking Sam Darnold, thinking Drake May, thinking some other skill position players on both sides. This might be the last wave of Super Bowls in the next couple of years where we can say these guys were definitely Ohio State players, Notre Dame players, Alabama players, and not, oh, they played for 3 teams. They played for 4 teams, you know, kind of like the Hall of Fame discussion, you know, which hat did they wear when they get inducted?
You know,
they do the
go ahead.
introductions. They do the introductions before the game on like TV, you know, John Doe, Wisconsin or whatever. I don't know what's going to happen at this point. We've seen some guys move away and, you know, talk about their, you know, their Sandlot team or their high school team or, you know, School of Hard Knocks or whatever. As you know, as it becomes a more transactional game and season to season and everything else, yeah, how are you going to determine what school that you were there for? I mean, especially, you know, I think we're going to see guys that are going to be at 4 schools in 4 years. I don't think that is very far away. I mean, I think we've seen a bit of it. I mean, hell, Dylan Raiola's on his way to that, especially if you put high school into that. He's on his way to like 7 schools in 7 years. So, you're exactly right with the point, and kind of as you were leading up to the question, I was like, I know where he's going with this one, and I agree 1,000%.
Well, I sit here and I write these previews for basketball every game, and the interesting thing is the opposing teams, you know, the top 10 or 11 guys, you know, none of them were on the roster of the team that they're playing for today. A year ago, that's certainly the case with USC. Musselman, who, again, they're playing USC here tonight. He hit the reset button almost entirely. And so really is Virginia, who Ohio State's going to play on Saturday. But this cat in particular, I just wrote about him. Cam Woods, a guard for USC, will be in the starting lineup tonight. I don't know if you can read his colleges there on his ESPN bio. He's got 5 different schools, started at Troy, then North Carolina A&T, NC State. Last year was Robert Morris, rather, not Roger, Robert Morris. And then now at USC, this guy, like they said in The Hangover, Kevin, this freaking guy. You know,
yeah, that's exactly.
This guy's crazy. These freaking guys, you know, 5 schools in 5 years. Unreal.
I know there's a few other examples like this, but I'm watching Wake Forest and Mississippi State. Yes, I'm watching Wake Forest and Mississippi State playing a bowl game. And Robbie Ashford, starting quarterback for Wake Forest, and I'm sitting there, and I did not watch any Wake Forest football this year, so I didn't know that Robbie Ashford had landed
Why would you?
at Wake Forest. But I'm sitting there thinking, he originally signed at Ole Miss. He went to Oregon. He went to Auburn. He went to South Carolina. Now he's at Wake Forest.
God. TJ
Finley's got kind of a run like that at Texas State and LSU and Auburn and a few other stops. So yeah, I do think that the introduction, whenever they started that roughly 20 years ago, I would guess Monday Night Football, now all the games in the NFL, that's a source of pride for both the player, many of the players, some of them probably don't care, but many of the players, it's a source of pride. And then the fans at home saying, yeah, oh, we got 2 Ohio State guys or 2 whatever guys from that particular team, our school, playing tonight in the NFL. So, yeah, that is going to be lost, and that's unfortunate. All right, folks, we talk Buckeyes football with you every Wednesday, and blame me, it's 4 p.m. Eastern time now. 4 p.m. Eastern time every Wednesday, getting together with Kevin. We got Steve here, of course, and as Steve is letting everyone know, we will take your comments, questions there in the chat. We appreciate your super chat contributions. Any way that you can support us here at the Voice of College Football, these guys show up and deliver for us. We're presented by FanDuel, and making that transition NFL to NFL, of course. Buckeye fans will have that source of pride here in April when we will see all sorts of posts and lists on social media proclaiming the most number 1 NFL draft selections, and I believe number 3, you guys can check me on that, between after USC and Notre Dame in terms of overall draft selections, but Ohio State is certainly catching up. If you looked at like the last 30 or 40 years, I think Ohio State would be number 1. So there's a another bragging rights point there. And of course, the combine list was announced. Steve, your thoughts about the 11 that are headed to Indianapolis for the Buckeyes?
Yeah, I thought it made sense pretty much across the board. I don't know of any major omissions. Perhaps Tywan Malone at defensive line may have gotten a look. So it was the running back, C.J. Donaldson, Carnell Tate at wide receiver, 2 tight ends, Will Kazmarek and Max Clare. So there's 4 on offense, no linemen, of course. And then over on defense, let's see, you had the defensive tackle, Caden McDowell, was in there. Caden McDonald, and Caden Curry, I believe, the defensive lineman. And then the 2 linebackers, which are Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese, and then the 3 defensive backs, which were Lorenzo Styles Jr., Davison Igbinosun, and Caleb Downs, the All-American safety. So you got 11 guys. We're planning to go out there and cover the combine and get all the interviews with the guys. But 11 guys going, and as many as 5 of them could go in the first round. I know Ohio State had 4 of them in the first round after they won the national championship in 2014. Maybe it was the 2016 draft, the year after they won the year after they won, I guess, however you put that. But I think I don't know what the record is. Is 5 the record, 4 the record? I'm not even sure for a particular school what the record is.
Don't hold me to this. I think Georgia had 5. After
5. That makes sense. That sounds right.
Did the Philadelphia Eagles have 5 picks or whatever? Since the Eagles like to get picked by the like to pick Georgia Bulldogs.
4 defensive linemen, and
you want to read something. A writer at Fox did the top 100 free agents. I don't know if you guys saw this list, but I've done these type lists before, and they wrote quite a bit on the top 100 free agents. And there was only one Ohio State guy out there, Draymond Jones, I think was the only one mentioned. But what was remarkable was the guy went through the list and had about every other guy signing with the New England Patriots. And I'm like, excuse me, Sandy, isn't there a salary cap in this league? I mean, how are the Patriots going to be able to take everybody that's on that list? But that is, I'm going to tell you, if you're an NFL fan, that story was worth checking out. FoxSports.com, the top 100 free agents in the NFL. And as I said, only one, I perused it just looking for Ohio State guys, and the only one mentioned was Draymond Jones.
So when we see this combine list, I would love to see somebody run the numbers on the correlation between invitation to the combine and making an NFL roster or being drafted, because I believe the number's 329 this year. I don't know what kind of cap they put on it. It's usually 325.
319. It's 319.
Okay.
It's been 329 in the past, and they didn't invite as many people this year for whatever reason.
those 10 guys not going will make it stay on time.
Yeah. Well, you get a better chance of being drafted, obviously, the more people who see you and meet you and all these other things. But there are definitely guys who slip between the cracks and, get found at pro days. And I know a guy who knows a guy who, vouches for this guy, and he gets a 7th round draft pick out of it, or, whatever. And, there's been a lot of guys like those stories that weren't heralded coming out of college, but certainly have turned out to be great professional players. So everybody kind of blooms at their own age and that type of thing. And I can't really think about an Ohio State guy, Andrew Norwell. I don't know if he got to go to the combine his year, but he certainly wasn't drafted. So he must have done pretty well at his pro day, because he was an offensive lineman who got selected, and he ended up playing in the NFL for a few years, obviously. So that was an example of a guy who slipped through the cracks, but still got drafted, and still, I believe he got drafted. Maybe he was an undrafted free agent. I don't know, whatever it was, but he slipped through the cracks.
I bring up the numbers to play the numbers game of 32 times 7 is 224 get drafted. Compensatory picks, there's usually another 15 to 30 or whatever the number.
It's like 250 that gets.
Yeah, it's about 250. And so if they invite 319 now to the combine, not even all those guys get drafted.
And then you're going to have 15, 20 guys that are going to not go to the combine that will get drafted, so especially some of your FCS guys and things of that nature. Not obviously not your super obvious guys that play in the Dakotas or whatnot, even though North Dakota State is on its way trying to go to FBS at this point. So you're gonna have a handful there. So for you fans of the Columbus Aviators in the UFL, keep an eye out there for what might slip through the cracks.
And you look at this again. There will be guys who go to the combine fully expecting that they're going to get drafted. Their agent says they're going to get drafted, and they will unknowingly combine their way out of it, either with a poor showing at the combine, they get hurt at the combine, or their interviews with the teams are so bad that they unknowingly, drive their own draft stock way down to compare
medical testing that they have an injury that is so deeply buried on there, that they've been playing with like some heart condition. I mean, there are guys that end up getting DQ'd once they go through the real NFL medical process.
Yeah. Was it the Giants DQ'd Shedeur Sanders after they met with him? Was that the story that came out, that they were the team that they met with him and just said under no condition would we ever take him? And he was big timing him in the interview and didn't want to, draw up plays and whatever. And, I wonder if sometimes, kind of like Elway not wanting to go wherever he needed to go, do you tank the interview just so you don't end up on a crappy team? I don't know, but it's life in the NFL on a bad team. As long as they're paying me good money, I'm probably okay with it. Their salary cap's going up again this year with more revenue. So this Goodell guy, he's creating more widgets every day. Just look at him go. Can we do an 18-game regular season?
Yeah, the NFLPA wants no part of that at this point. I mean, not without. I mean, even if they figured out additional compensation for adding to the workload or whatever, because this isn't college where you hear them talk about, they practice 350 days a year, the 14 games that they get to play or whatever. That's what they do this for. Well, when this is your job for reals in the NFL, the NFLPA isn't going to be apt to give anything away for free.
And pulling the big time, I'm a big timer stunt, a la Elway and Manning doesn't necessarily work when everybody passes on you 4 or 5 times. So Shedeur couldn't really pull that one off. We are going to look at the 2026 Ohio State football schedule, which may be one of the toughest we've ever seen. Leading us into that, we got our buddy Jackson Johnson stopping by with this one. Jackson, we appreciate you being here. If the Ohio State-Alabama 2027 and 28 series gets canceled, which I hope does not get canceled, could Ohio State replace Bama with SMU or Kansas State? I don't see NC State keeping Texas Tech and Kansas State for 2027.
I mean, you're going to see a lot of people looking for dance partners because I think with the SEC moving to 9 conference games and needing, and a lot of these schools have their one built-in rivalry game that may or may not be in conference play, that you're gonna see other schools ducking out and making these late changes. But until I don't know what Steve's opinion is on this, until that series gets canceled, whether or not it happens, remains to be seen at this point. I mean, I know that people have been talking about it on social media. I think it's too early for me to get too caught up on looking at what's next. I mean, I need to look at will the series with Bama happen in the first place before I start trying to replace anybody, because I can't look 4 steps ahead anymore. I'm too slow these days.
Yeah, I know Paul Feinbaum came out and said that that would definitely be unfortunate if that's the case. And I don't know why Alabama, other than the fact they're no longer Alabama, that they've been the last 20 years, but or from 06 or 07, whenever Saban got there, but they're not quite at that level anymore. But I don't know. I don't know why they would give up on that. As I've said before, from Ohio State's standpoint, in those odd numbered seasons, to have a game like that on the home schedule, like the Texas game last year, they were able to sell suites and tickets and parking and, club seats and everything else off of the back of that one game and jack up the ticket price and everything else. So it's worth a lot of money. If you play those type games, they can be kind of a thing that kind of helps you, marketing and all these other things. So sponsorships and whatever else, there's more of a buzz around the program. So I get the argument. I was thinking about this today. Texas still maintains if we hadn't played that game, well, who's to say if you'd played Texas Tech instead, you weren't going to beat them. So, I don't know. I mean, who are you going to replace them with? North Texas or Texas Tech? I mean, whatever. But at any rate, that would be unfortunate if they cancel it. College football fans deserve the best, and to have 3 walkovers in September is meaningless. And, then the real season wouldn't begin till October. And you wait around all year for it, and you get a few nice games sprinkled in there in September. Each weekend makes it nice. So I don't know. I'm down on this movement.
And I want to add to this too, as I had a chance to sit here and think about it a little bit more. Ohio State thinks very highly of Ohio State. I can't see Ohio State agreeing to do a home and home and going into Manhattan, Kansas. I can't see Ohio State doing a home and home and going into Highland Park, Texas. These are places of where Ohio State might do a 4-game series and play 3 of them in Columbus and play 1 of them at a neutral site. I think you're going to be hard pressed to see Ross Bjork and the athletic department being like, no, sure, we'll come in and play in Manhattan, Kansas. We'll be sure to bring supplies with us while we're at it. I mean, I don't know if anybody here's been to Manhattan, Kansas. I have, and it's blink and you'll miss it.
And SMU could be a deal like TCU where they agreed to play the game at Jerry World, and they do that because you can monetize so much more out at Jerry World than you could at SMU, or TCU. So, club seats and all the luxury suites and everything else that goes with the AT&T Stadium there. So you have the Cowboys fan base as well as the SMU fan base and the Ohio State fan base to sell to, and people buy those tickets and suites and all that for that event. So you can make money off of that even as a road team if you agree to that. So that was, I think they got $5 million for playing that game at TCU, which is much more than they would had the game been played. Well, the game with TCU at Jerry World, as opposed to had they played it at TCU on their campus. So
I'm seeing those names and striking up a little nostalgia here. Ohio State and SMU in Woody Hayes' final season, I believe, tied 35 all.
Yep.
Kansas State, of course, was the Fiesta Bowl game. Michael Jenkins had a nice night. Craig Krenzel, 35-28.
Yes.
I believe, with the Fiesta Bowl win 1 year after the national championship. And, of course, the home and home against NC State. Phillip Rivers, overtime and at the shoe. And the year before, or the year after, was the last second field goal to win in Raleigh. And then we got Maurice Claret's coming out party against Texas Tech in the opener in 2002. So a lot of
a lot of good memories there.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks, we appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football, presented by FanDuel across the network, including here with Buckeyes Live. Catch Kevin Noon at BuckeyeHuddle.com and the Big Me podcast. Do we have one of those on the horizon, Kevin?
We're working on it. On it. I apologize to my listeners. It's just a lot going on. Just trying to figure it out. I mean, maybe we'll sneak one in this week. We'll see. Problem is now that I'm back here doing the Mark Rogers show, I'm all talked out. I don't have anything left to talk about.
Oh, I don't believe that. Steve, what's going on with you? Little hoops.
Yeah, going to this game tonight, and obviously a lot of the wind was knocked out of Ohio State sails on Sunday. 21-point loss at home to Michigan, number 2 team in the country, and everybody came away saying, "Man, Michigan's going to be a Final Four team." We'll see, but long way to go till then. And Ohio State just trying to swim upstream to even get an NCAA berth at this point. If they lose this one, it could get a little ugly around here. So, yeah, it's going to be going on tonight. Chad Baker-Mazara, the former Auburn guard, not going to play for USC, came out in the injury report. They've won 3 games in a row over Rutgers, Indiana, and Penn State, all by single digits. Ohio State has been pretty tough here at home against unranked teams. Obviously, they got 3 losses here to ranked opponents, and they got to get back up on the beam tonight and get it done and get to 16-8. And, as I say with this team, it's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. Sunday was about 5 steps back. So they got a lot of ground to make up here in a short amount of time.
7-6 for both teams in the Big Ten. Steve, we've got the Buckeyes as a pretty solid favorite at home by 8.5. Our over-under is 151.5. What's that, 80-71?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. I went with 80-75. I'm not so sold on Ohio State covering that number. And I think both these teams have a propensity for giving up a few points as well. So I think USC's defense is like 14th in the Big Ten or something like that. So Ohio State should have an easier time putting the ball in the basket than they did on Sunday against Michigan. Let's just say this, there was a lot of resistance to them trying to put the ball in the basket on Sunday versus Michigan. Michigan has held them in the 60s both times they played. I don't think anybody else has all season long. So Ohio State and Michigan is not a good matchup. Would not want to see them in Chicago, and I don't think you will, because Michigan's not going to start playing there till Friday, and Ohio State's going to have to hustle to still be there on Friday.
We appreciate the comments and questions there in the chat, and we'll look at the 2026 schedule. And since we looked at some of those proposed games by our buddy Jackson, it brings to mind one particular schedule in 1995 or 6 was the year. There was a Boston College kickoff classic, and of course Notre Dame. And it was quite the murderer's row early in the season. Boston College was actually a good football team then. But this one, my goodness, this may rank as the toughest Ohio State schedule. Obviously, they have to play the games and the teams have to live up to the expectations. But, Kevin, what do you think of this schedule?
At least they're not coming out and playing Texas week 1. That's about the only thing I can say about the schedule. If they play them week 2, they open at home against Ball State. But we already knew the non-conference dates. It's all about the conference dates. Ohio State has a stretch of where in the span of 4 weeks plays number 1 Indiana, has an open week at number 3 USC, and then home against number 5 Oregon. I mean, there's not really a period on the schedule of where you can say, all right, this is your exhale. This is where you can kind of focus on yourselves while still playing games. I mean, you sit there and you look at the teams that you think that are going to be down in conference play. Maryland, well, you've got that sandwiched between Iowa and Indiana. You sit there and you look at, I mean, I guess Northwestern and Nebraska on the 14th and the 21st of November might be the point of where you have that. But by the time you get to that Nebraska game, you're focused on the game. I remember a game in College Park, Maryland. That was the week before the game, and Ohio State needed everything and a little bit more to win that game in overtime. So there's not really that type of period to where Ohio State can sit there and string together 2 games in an open week or 3 games and sit there and say, we're going to focus on ourselves. Hey, we're going to try and make some on-the-fly adjustments, like some serious retooling. Once you get through Ball State, when you get to September 12th, I mean, it's on. I mean, yeah, you got September 19th against Kent State, and I'm just going to say it, Kent State ain't no good. But then you got Illinois, and you never know with Burt Bielema and what you're going to get there.
Yeah, it's a very difficult schedule, and possibly 6 or 7 top 25 teams preseason. Of course, I always bring that up, and then my buddy Patrick Murphy will say, well, we thought Texas and Penn State were going to be top 5 teams before the last season, and they didn't pan out to be. So, and I think that hurt Ohio State that they were untested when they got to the end of the season and had to play the likes of Indiana and Miami, and it didn't go very well. So, to me, they didn't get it done with an easy schedule last year. We'll see if they can get it done with a hard schedule this year. And they kept as many of the guys as they could, I think, on the roster. I think they really dug in and tried to keep a lot of the starters. There's only one starter who left in the portal, and that was Tegra Shabola, who, obviously was the weak link on the offensive line. So I don't think they'll miss him necessarily. And then, they had to go out and get a lot of veteran players from across the country. They really kind of gutted the 2024 and to a degree, the 2025 recruiting classes. There won't be a lot of seniors hanging around, 4-year guys hanging around by the time 26, 27, 28 arrive. But, such is life in the big city at this point. And just go out and hire the best players you can hire each year. And that's how it's going to be done, I guess, going forward.
I'm looking at, even though there's a bye there, Indiana, USC, and Oregon. 3
Murderers row
games.
Yeah.
And I'm also thinking that if Penn State doesn't get back to being Penn State under Matt Campbell in his first season, which I'm sure that they will be formidable to some extent, but if you take them out of the mix as not reclaiming their spot as a top 3 or 4 team in the Big Ten, Ohio State is not missing anyone.
Yeah,
the computer was just like, yep, you're getting everybody. And again, we knew the teams. It was just a matter of how they were going to schedule things out. And again, as I said, Maryland, Northwestern, maybe Nebraska breaking in a new quarterback, a new to them quarterback. Those the three moments that you can take your breath. I mean, the only way that you were going to see something is if you strung a couple of those games really together, and then you could sit there and really run into the risk of having 4 or 5 games back up each other. So, yeah, that stretch you mentioned, going from October 17th at Indiana all the way through November 7th against Oregon, that's going to be a tough stretch. But I mean, I guess the computer could have done them dirtier, but I not much.
I don't know how.
I don't know how.
So getting to the format, you guys are bringing up the computer, and I don't know if you're saying that generically or otherwise, because obviously we used to have East and West. You played everyone in your division, and then there was a rotation of the other 7 teams in the other division, unless you were Indiana, Purdue, who played. But anyway, other than that, 3 from the other division. When the SEC banished the divisions, they let us know exactly how they were going to attack this. And they've got a whole regiment of playing, based on the last 10 years' performance, like the top third and the middle third and the bottom third. And everybody has their rivals, which for Ohio State, it's only 1. It's Michigan. If you're Iowa, they've got 3. If it's Penn State, they've got none. So do we have a good handle on what the formula is?
No one's ever really explained it to me. And the only comment that I've ever really made about this is, okay, you swindled CBS and NBC out of $300 million each and gave them Michigan State versus Charlotte for a primetime game and late season game with Penn State after they were completely out of the. I think the Penn State Michigan State game may have been on CBS late in the season or something like that. And it's just like they're paying through the nose for terrible games, giving Fox and all these games plus Friday night games that they get a pluck off, as part of the selection as well. And some of those might have been better on a Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening. And so the only comment I've really ever made is you got to have the best teams playing each other at least enough to where you have 3 quality games on the schedule all season long to make each network at least somewhat happy that they got some good games. I mean, I think NBC got Oregon, Indiana, I think, last year, which was in prime time, I think. Yeah. So, and there'll be some that trickle out, because what's Fox going to take as their top three? They're going to take Ohio State versus Michigan. They're going to take Ohio State versus Oregon. They're going to take Ohio State versus Indiana. I mean, those are the obvious top three that they have to take. And so there's going to be some other matchups out there that even some Ohio State ones that are going to fall to some of the other networks.
Part of the process too is that you're not going to send an Eastern team to go out and play 3 games on the West. You're gonna get
one trip.
You're gonna go have one trip out and one trip in. So that already kind of sets some parameters. And Ohio State's trip out is to go and play at USC. They're bringing a Western team in for Oregon. You try to sit there, and I think you wanted to have like an open week either the week before or the week after. You have to take one of those trips. Just, we're still under the guise that you're student athletes and everything else, even though everything else can be done. Yeah, can be done remote learning and everything else. And I digress on that point. So there are some parameters that are in that point, but this isn't the NFL in terms of, okay, well, we're going to sit there and because you were like the Super Bowl representative from your conference, you're going to have to, have statistically the toughest schedule available in terms of who's not in your division and things like that. I think I'm not going to say that it's randomness. I think that's very deliberate in how the schedule gets put together. I don't have Northwestern's schedule handy. I don't have some of the lower teams in the conference schedule handy at this point. I have a feeling it probably does not look like Ohio State's schedule, but I think I think that's why you have to bring computers and things of that nature in there, and you probably have to run a lot of multiple versions of it to kind of figure out and find something that's there. And then you're still going to have people like us talking on a show about, wow, Ohio State really got their heads dunked in the toilet with this schedule. This is, this ain't no good.
Well, one of the reasons teams play in the same conference is to play like opponents and like schedules to determine a valid champion for the conference. But we've gotten so big with these conferences, and there's so many teams that you miss. Every team misses, what's the math? 8 teams. They play 9. They are themselves, so they miss 8. Yes, they miss 8 teams. So you've opened up the disparity of scheduling difficulty. When you look at the most difficult schedule in the Big Ten, whose ever that is, and this might be the one, the last couple of years it's been Wisconsin has really gotten screwed a couple times, and Nebraska has been on the other end with easy schedules. They don't even look like they play in the same league. And then you're supposed to have a valid championship when there's such a disparity between schedule difficulty.
Yeah, that was the beauty of the divisional play, was that everybody played each other in the division, and you generally had a fairly clear division champion, unless it was a 3-way tie or something stupid. But there was usually a criteria to determine who should play in the championship game. Now, 1 versus 2, I mean, it can get a little, this year was easy, 9-0 versus 9-0, but some years, it's going to be harder to, if there's a 4-way tie at the top, how do you solve that? We saw that in the Big 12 last year, I believe, and a 4-way tie for second in the ACC or something this past year, and something like that. And Duke, of all teams, won the tiebreaker somehow. I mean, how do they even let that happen? There should be, if your school's name is Duke, you go to the back of the line. I mean, that should be like C on the parameter list.
Duke made it to the ACC championship game without beating a team with a winning record in the ACC.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
But we can talk about the greatness of divisional play, and I know that there's some tongue-in-cheek there. Let's not forget that the Legends couldn't do anything, and let's not forget that the Big Ten West couldn't do anything. They just couldn't find a way. And I'm not saying that the thing is to go like the ACC with the Coastal and the Atlantic divisions that have nothing to do with anything in terms of geography, alphabetized, whatever, and then now you throw in SMU and Cal and Stanford into the ACC, and it's even that much more of a mess. But I mean, the Big Ten, nobody had more lopsided divisions through the history of divisional play than the Big Ten did. So, people were getting sick and tired of seeing an
Good point.
8-4 team come out of the other side and be the ceremonial,
Whipping boy. Yeah.
whipping boy, and getting beaten,
Tune up for the
senseless.
playoff.
Exactly. I mean, while the whole thing is still a money grab, you're not grabbing as much money as you'd like to because the games were terrible. Ohio State, Indiana. Yes, everybody who's watching this show, more or less, maybe there's an Indiana fan out there, and so hi. But the game didn't go the way that Ohio State fans wanted, but that was put up big numbers. I mean, it did big dollars. I mean, that's what you want. I'm not a big fan of conference championship games. I think you need to find a way to move away from those, especially if you're going to try to expand the playoffs and get things going a little bit sooner. But I don't even know how you're going to work that with Army Navy being when it is, and you really can't start the playoffs opposite of Army Navy. That just doesn't fly.
I thought the conference championship games originally were a marvel, a mastermind. But yes, they've run their course, and because of the playoff situation, most of them are either meaningless or you have a Duke type situation that you have to deal with. So yeah, unless they seriously figure things out to make these relevant. And it didn't stop people from watching, as you mentioned, Kevin, Ohio State and Indiana. They set record numbers, even though both teams were going to be a 1 or 2 seed in the playoff. Regardless, it's pretty much just determined that. The conference championship games have kind of run their course, except for making money. The interesting thing about the East-West issue for 10 years in the Big Ten was all that matters is what you're pointing out, Kevin, and that's who the best teams in the divisions were. And there was never any competition between 8 and 4 teams coming out of the West versus national championship contenders coming out of the East. But if you put all the games together, actually with the drain of Maryland and Indiana at the time and those teams, the aggregate wins losses between the two divisions was almost equal top to bottom. It was just that the teams at the top were so much better, and that's all that matters in playing for a championship.
Yeah, it's a zero-sum game. Somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. And when you have a conference that has 3 teams at the top, that means you're going to have a lot of teams that are going to be at the bottom because those 3 teams at the top are sucking up all the wins. So you're going to, if you sit there and you have a situation of where you're going to have 100 games played, you're going to have 100 winners and you're going to have 100 losers. There's just no way, you can't change the math. I mean, maybe with Common Core math these days, you can change the math, but I took enough statistics in college to understand that if you have 100 coin flips, your total is going to be 100.
GMOSU says, thank goodness Indiana is good, so we won't have as many noon games. I get your point, and that would seem to make sense, Jim, and you might be right. We'll see what the selections are, but Fox is not making selections based on who's good. They make the selections based on who's going to draw an audience. And if Indiana, and we can see from their playoff games, drew audiences, but Fox will make that determination. And that's why we've had Ohio State and Toledo playing at noon or whatever the game was. One non-conference game seemed to make no sense from a competition standpoint, but it was Ohio State. So they played at noon against a MAC team on Fox. So that's how they make their decisions. They don't care who's good or who's not good. It's who's going to bring the eyeballs to the TV sets.
Indiana's not going to turn on a ton of television sets. It's just not going to happen when it is a Saturday full of games and everything else. Ohio State does, and that's why you get some of these, like, I can't believe that's a noon game situations with Ohio State, but you sit there and you go on to Sports Media Watch and you see the numbers that the game did, and it's like, well, we know that Ohio State moves product, and it is what it is. The only thing I say, whenever anybody talks to me about noon games and everything else, put on your big boy pants and start drinking earlier. I mean, it's what I say. I mean, then again, that's how I live my life. Put on my big boy pants and start drinking earlier.
I can't day drink, man. 57 years old. I'm too old for that stuff, man. I gotta go take a nap.
Yes, with the Metamucil.
The
I can't believe we missed the big story of the week, and that's that Ohio State picked up a place kicker from Notre Dame.
Yeah. What do they have? 2 or 3 kickers now? I don't even know. They have 3.
Three,
Yeah.
but this guy
So
was
they'll be
what was the walk on at Notre Dame? He's attempted 1 field goal in his career in 2024. It was from outside of 50. He didn't make it. Last year he attempted 3-point afters. He made 2 of the 3. It'll be good to have a kicking competition, and we'll see what comes out of it now that Ohio State has a special teams coordinator coming over from Illinois, and we see what the competition looks like. But I wouldn't exactly be putting him number 1 on my depth chart in Penn at this point. But yeah, portal never sleeps.
Somebody in the chat had asked earlier about Matt Patricia, just if there's anything brewing or seems to be brewing concerning his decision process.
I haven't heard anything. I think that his strategy was to let the NFL head coaching jobs get situated and then see if he gets any phone calls to be an offensive coordinator somewhere. And I guess once that all calms down, we'll know for sure whether or not, I guess a defensive coordinator, I apologize. We will know if he's going to be back to call the defense. My guess as of right now is that he will be. And, we'll see how it goes. If it goes as good as it did this year, then my guess is he would be gone after this upcoming season. But again, Kevin said, you can't live your life 3 steps ahead. You got to go day by day. And as it stands right now, he's preparing for spring football at Ohio State. So, they're going to start practice in about a month. I think almost a month from today on March the 11th, I believe, on a Tuesday.
March the 10th or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's coming up in 4 weeks. And, we'll be talking about that in the run up to that, certainly.
Yeah. I mean, no news is good news at this point. It does not benefit Matt Patricia to come out and make some sort of statement saying, I'm not listening to anybody about any positions or anything, because you know what that's worth? Nothing. And that's not a slight on Matt Patricia as a person or whatever. It's just we hear words all the time and then the opposite happens. So there's just we'll know when we know. I mean, is the honest truth on there. And yeah, I mean, now the NFL calendar just ended with the Super Bowl. The last couple of dominoes are starting to fall in terms of where coaches are going to land at that point. But up to this point, Matt Patricia has been fulfilling his duties as DC for Ohio State, and you just kind of go from there. But again, to Steve's point, fast forward 365 days, and I think we'll be talking about a different defensive coordinator for Ohio State, because if Ohio State is nearly as good as I think everybody thinks it's going to be on defense next year, he assuredly will have a lot more opportunities.
Well done, Troy. Play on words there. And then we got Ed Rogers. I don't know if they need a kicking coach as much as they need a psychologist to help with the kicks under pressure. The overall kicking numbers aren't bad, but it's maybe the kicks against certain teams in certain situations.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you got somebody who's a guru and knows technique and all that, then go for it. I mean, that's fine, but they've got the special teams coordinator. My guess is he'll have his ideas on how he wants things done, and we'll tweak things with the guys and get them to perform their very best. And that's all you can do, really, is drill it every day in practice to where it becomes second nature. And then you go out there in the third quarter of a game and boom, it goes right through the uprights. So that's all, my experience with kicking or any of this is just, it's got to become second nature for those guys, the holder, the snapper, the kicker, that they've drilled it, 150 times in the last 10 weeks. And, they've done it. I mean, they have done it over and over and over to where it's just muscle memory and go take care of business and put it right down the middle. So, the quality of kicking, the NFL, you used to think, oh, if a guy hits 60, 70%, now if they don't hit 80 or 90%, you're like, what's wrong? And it's crazy the quality of the kicking anymore. And Ohio State needs to tap into some of that.
NFL kickers need to be able to kick 60 plus. College kickers need to be able to kick 50 plus, and I'm talking yards, not percent.
Yeah.
And Ohio State has not had somebody who's been really able to kick 50 plus in a hot minute. Now we can go back to, the Indiana game and essentially missing an extra point. That has nothing to do with leg and everything else. That was just a breakdown that happened there. And they to answer the question, yes, they have somebody on the staff who is working with the kickers to be able to do that. You're not going to want to sit there and have a guy who played tight end being like, well, this is how I would kick the ball. You have to have somebody who understands mechanics and things like that. But I also think that Ohio State has to get to the point of where it's comfortable and lives by, this is what we're capable to do. That little green line that they put on TV being the field goal range. If you get there, you better be making 95% of them from inside that green line. I mean, just come hell or high water, because we can go back to the Georgia game and, I still kind of disagree with the last couple plays they ran before they attempted the 50-yarder and from Noah Ruggles and how that didn't go the right way. And then I can go back to some other ones of where they just, it just seems like it's an afterthought. It seems like it's an afterthought. And, with the unlimited amount of coaches, I mean, it doesn't change the number that you can have on the road recruiting, but the unlimited amount of coaches, hopefully these are things that are there. I mean, say what you will about Ryan Day. He does learn from his mistakes. Maybe it's not immediate, but he does learn from his mistakes. And I think that things are going to be better, but, we'll see what happens at DKR week 2 of the season when Ohio State's at Texas, and if Ohio State has to kick a pressure field goal and what that looks like and who's kicking it.
The worst example of coaching in this category that I can remember ever was Herm Edwards when he was with the Jets in the playoffs. 1 week they're at San Diego. He's got a drive going to win the game. They're marching down the field. He pulls up stakes around the 40-yard line to try a 50-plus yard field goal. They miss it. San Diego can't score. They miss their field goal. I think that was actually Mike Nugent. And then Jets come down. They win the game on a short field goal. He doesn't learn his lesson. The next week, they go to Pittsburgh for the divisional round. It's like 11 degrees outside, howling winds. They're driving down the field to win the game, tie game. Curtis Martin has the longest streak without a fumble in NFL history. Number one. Number two, Chad Pennington has not thrown a red zone interception the whole season. But again, he pulls up stakes for like a 51-yard field goal and doesn't let Chad Pennington win the game or Curtis Martin win the game. What do you think happens? Misses the field goal from like 50 yards in like sub-freezing weather with like 40-mile-an-hour winds. I'm exaggerating, but probably 20. And Pittsburgh wins a game and goes to the AFC Championship game. Yes, you can be too conservative or just, I don't know, set too much in your ways of thinking these situations through.
Yeah, you got Luke Rosa up there on the screen. I don't know the entire story, but I think he was an Ohio State student or was going to go to Ohio State, but instead was going to get paid to play pro football and went off and did that. And may have been during the war. I don't even know, but he was at Ohio State, was going to be an Ohio State person and a player, I guess, and never played for Ohio State, but then went on and was in the NFL forever. So, yeah.
Luke Rosa, Martins Ferry.
Martins Ferry, Ohio.
Martins Ferry, Ohio. He was at Ohio State for a year, but then enlisted in the Army to go. I've got his Wikipedia page up, and then to go serve in World War II. So Steve was right with the story.
And then we got out of the war. He went right to the pros, probably. Yeah.
Well, war ages you at that point. I mean, there's just no need to be going back to college at that point. Just get on with your life.
Yep.
So Ed, we totally get your point. I am in no way critiquing Lou Groza in a negative way, but to Kevin's point about kicking, I knew I was going to find this type of statistic. Lou Groza's kicking percentage, field goal percentage in the NFL. Does anyone want to take a guess?
53.
57.
Both good guesses. I would have been right around there as well. 54.9.
Yeah. Split the difference, Kev.
55. Split the difference. I was
Yeah.
going to say that, but I started to get all prices righty. I should have said $1.
Yeah. We have all this meaningless sports information just swirling around in our head. So yeah, got to put it to good
for
use.
13 from 50 plus. 18
toe.
of 55 from 40 to 49.
The toe.
But you go back and you watch the Ole Miss Georgia game this year, and that Ole Miss kicker is bombing 50-yarders or whatever. It's a different game, and you're Ohio State.
Yeah.
You've got to go get that guy. This is show business, not show friends. Again, I'm one of the biggest pro player people out there. I'm going to always defend players, but I just really struggle to believe that there was not enough of an internal battle in terms of what Ohio State had kicking to have a little bit more consistency in those high leverage situations.
Yeah, I talked about writing these basketball previews with 11 new top players on every one of these teams that Ohio State plays. And it's kind of like, you can't fall in love with any of these people. And somebody had the adage, do you want to get his family paid, or do you want to get your family paid? And it is a cutthroat, results-driven business, no doubt.
Folks, we've got the audio to not just this show, but all the shows here at the Voice of College Football available on your favorite audio platform. So please check it out. Kevin, what's available from you this week?
Well, we're going to shoot to do a show on Friday. Maybe we'll certainly talk about, maybe go in a little more depth in the schedule, talk a little bit about the combine. Hell, maybe even talk about some Olympic hockey, OSU women's hockey, or OSU USA women's hockey, with a lot of OSU connections on there, looking really good through pool play. Just beat Canada 5-0. Excited to talk about that. We'll just sit there and say Big Me kickoff coming up here at Friday, time to be determined. And as we get closer to spring ball, I'll start asking some questions of what we would like to learn during spring ball. And of course, I expect Tony Gerdeman to be joining us back here on the show here soon, and he'll carry the water.
Steve, you've got some basketball to cover.
Yeah, got the game tonight with USC. I'm actually going to go down to Nashville on Saturday. I haven't been there in a long time. I'm going to see Ohio State play Virginia down there. Then I'm going to head on down to Hilton Head for a couple of days after that, and then back next week and get energized and get ready and start previewing what's going to happen this spring with football. So got a lot going on here, and we find a way to fill all these days with plenty of interviews and stories and pictures and videos, and we just keep right on chugging. We've been doing it for quite a while, so I guess until something better comes along, that's where we'll be.
Buckeyes Live is presented by FanDuel. We'll make it on back here. The plan is next Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll see you then.